Joining me now, Alondra Nelson, former AI advisor to President Joe Biden and a professor at the Institute for Advanced Study. Hi, Professor Nelson. Good to meet you and great to have you on our program this morning.
Great to be with you, Vashi.
How would you characterize right now the threat that AI poses from your vantage point?
Look, I think that we already have existing threats in the world, from the climate crisis to, adversaries in the world with using existing forms of science and technology for illicit uses, everything from, nuclear warfare to bioweapons. Those things are already risks in the world. And, AI, and particularly advanced AI, presents the possibility of really increasing those risks by scale and velocity. And so I think these are risks that increase in sort of scale and not sort of different risks in kind, I would say.
Do you think, though, that apart from what you just outlined, there is, as some in the field have characterized it, a potentially existential threat to humanity posed by AI? Or is it more limited?
I think we don't know yet. I think it's an open question. And I think the political opportunity here and the social opportunity is there's things that we can do about it. And so, there's a lot of work for us to do, and it's going to take an ecosystem of folks working across industry and government and research communities, and really engaging the publics around this. But I think the headline here should be, existential risk is always a possibility. It's a possibility that's all around us in more ways than, through AI as a vector. And we have agency and can do something about it.
I want to talk about that agency, and in particular, two things that you just said: mitigating the risk, but also that we could be ahead of the curve. And I just want to, that latter point especially, because I previously interviewed, for example, Yoshua Bengio, who did a lot of work in this space as well, who was concerned that maybe we were getting behind the curve, that government in general, governments, not one specific government, but governments in general, are not necessarily known to be nimble, and the pace at which this technology is changing is kind of outpacing really the average pace of a government, or the usual pace of a government. Do you share any of those concerns, or do you feel that actually the possibility exists still to get ahead of the curve?
Oh, I think the possibility exists, absolutely. I would say, these products are consumer, they're consumer facing, and we're having a public conversation about them because they've been released to consumers. In some instances with not, I think, the testing that we would really fully want before they've been released. So we've got products that hallucinate, that their effectiveness is a little bit unreliable. And I think that, that we need to sort of, I think, reframe the conversation. And I think one way to do that, some of the agency, is to really just, I think, anchor in core values of our work, right? And to really think about what are the sort of freedoms and the values that we share in democratic societies, and how are those embodied in policies that we create about technology, and also the ways that we use risk mitigation tools upstream with technologies, downstream after sort of harms or risks have been manifest and the like. So it does take policy innovation on the part of government, but it is not the case that government is not a necessary and equal partner in this work.
Is it your sense, given the work that you do and that you have done, that the government, for example, you worked with, is sort of wide open, eyes wide open, I should say, to the issue? Like, do you feel like governments are seized enough with the way in which to do what you just laid out?
I think so. I mean, I think there's a lot of learning. I mean, everyone needs to sort of keep learning in the space of policymaking and government, of course. But I would say a couple of things. One, I was able in the Biden-Harris administration to work on an initiative called the Blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights that identified principles and practices for maximizing the benefits of AI and automated systems and minimizing their risks. And there's been an array of other things besides, including some new voluntary commitments from companies this week that we hope can be codified into legislation. And of course, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer in the Senate, U.S. Senate, had a big meeting to begin a conversation with business people and civil society about AI risk mitigation.
I just have 30 seconds left, Professor, but just on that point, do you think the codification is a must-do, given the degree to which some of these types of companies, for example, through social media and a lack of self-regulation there, didn't do what society might have hoped they would? Like, is that codification a necessary thing at this point?
Absolutely necessary. The social media kind of malaise that we are living with. I mean, social media brings many benefits, but it also has brought harms, and it's eroded democracy and other things. And we have a chance. That was a cautionary tale, and we have a chance for a kind of do-over. And I hope that some legislators are going to seize this opportunity and advance some legislation that protects the American public, and honestly, these are multinational companies, by implication, the global public as well.
Okay, Professor Nelson, I have to leave it there. I appreciate your insights today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.